Yo, what's happening, guys? Welcome to a brand new episode of Rave, Diaries and Tower Block Tales. I haven't done one of these for a while. Kind of let them slide. We got up to 50 episodes, and then I've been wrapped up in other bits and bobs. And yeah, I haven't done one of these for a while, but expect a onslaught of them. I've wrote out about 150 ideas for stories. They may not all make video, but there's loads still to come. I've just been a bit slack bladder recently on this particular playlist. So sorry about that if you enjoy these. But like I say, there's plenty more to come, and we've got all the time in the world. So right, today's story is what we're going to call today's story. I don't know. I guess how lucky was London? I guess we can call it that. So what I mean by that is the pirate radio side of things. I mean, obviously raves were going on everywhere, all over the country through the early 90s. You know, from the late 80s, the explosion. By the early 90s, 91, 92, there was big raves going on, literally the four corners of the country. So raves weren't a thing that was sort of exclusive to London, or there was more in London. Probably at times there was more outside of London, because obviously it's such a condensed place and there was no spaces as such where you could do them. So they was always on the outskirts. So, but pirate radio, that was something that I guess London led the world in, you know, let alone just this country. It leads the world in it. And I know London wasn't the only city that had pirate radio. I didn't. When I first started listening to pirate radio, I didn't know anything about anything. But you know, as the years went by and I learnt more and whatnot and got more involved, I realised that you know, most major cities in the UK had at least one pirate that tried his luck. Some had more. Some had successful pirates. But London was the hub. And growing up in Dagenham, which was on the outskirts of London, sort of the border of London and Essex. It's an RM postcode, so it's Essex, but it's a Greater London borough, so it comes under London. But we were lucky enough to be able to pick up, you know, all of the East London pirates, which would have been Cool FM, Weekend Rush, Pulse and Defection, all them sort of ones. And then sometimes you get some of the north and some of the south ones, depending on, you know, weather conditions and all them things that matter in the transmission of an FM signal. And very rarely we would get any of the West London ones, just because we was on the other side of London. The signal has to travel through the blocks to get to us, which wasn't going to really happen. So anyway, as a youngster, pirate radio came into my life. I think we probably covered this on other days, but or other stories, sorry. But yeah, a friend of mine introduced me to pirate radio, and I went home and found all the stations I could find on my radio. And I was hooked. And I never actually thought about it for a long time. You know, I didn't think, I wonder if you can listen to the radio here, there, or everywhere. But obviously the shouts that come in make you realise over time that, you know, they're not getting any shouts from outside of their local catchment area. So I guess my first realisation would have been that. And then, you know, like I said, I've gone down the road a bit further. I've got into pirate radio and I've ended up on pirate radio. And as time went on, it dawned on me, like, how lucky we were as Londoners to have, you know, as ravers in London, I should say, not everyone, because not everyone cared about pirate radio, but us lot, we did. And we were so lucky. Like, I would turn the radio on, you know, from 1991 when I found it up until, you know, pirates have sort of slowly died away and made way for DAB and internet and all the other things that have come with it due to the technology that's evolved over the years. But for a long time, for me, from 91 till probably, you know, well into the 2010s even, pirate radio was a huge part of mine and I know many of your lives. And it was just there at our fingertips. And yeah, until I started getting into stuff, like I was saying, and getting friends from other areas that were into this thing through Rave and stuff like that, and talking to them and realising, like, you know, I had a friend in Brighton that I used to, believe it or not, we'd write letters to each other, because this was a time before mobile phones and all that. Pen pal friends. But, you know, they didn't have pirate radio, so I would tell him about radio, for instance. And yeah, as time evolved, pirate radio became a huge part of the scene. From the start, it was a part, but arguably by the early 90s, pirate radio was a scene within itself. You know, there was multiple stations, and stations had started doing little events and bits of merchandise, and it started to become things. So yeah, I then started to realise that people were driving from, you know, all over the country down into the outskirts of London to listen to pirate radio because they couldn't get it home, and obviously there was no way of hearing it. You couldn't just log on the internet and listen to Cool FM, for instance, in 1994. There was no internet. You know, you wanted to listen to it, you had to drive down. Or how a lot of the big shows over the years that become big shows got known was tapes were sent all over the UK and all over the world. You know, Germany, Canada, all these places where the scene took off, the jungle scene, I'll say, really took off. A lot of this stemmed from tapes that were sent, tapes of raves, tapes of pirate radio that were sent to people that lived in these countries that were into the music, but it was so hard for them. So imagine if you lived in somewhere like Scunthorpe and you was into the music, that was hard enough. Imagine if you live in Toronto and you're into the music, it's even harder. You know, once they started doing their own raves and stuff, then they had their own scene. But early on, they were relying on tapes of not just raves, but pirate radio from London. So, yeah, it's just, we were so lucky as Londoners. I guess the point of this video, it's not really a factual, you know, exciting whatever, like gunshots and, you know, rave. But I just wanted to show some love for the pirate radio scene in London, especially where I grew up, because it shaped who I was to become. And I know it shaped a lot of our lives, and it was the soundtrack to so many of our lives. You know, radio has become this thing for a lot of us that we still enjoy listening to now in that old school format, like my show on Fridays and, you know, Jamie G and others that do it like that. There's a scene of people out there that grew up on that, and that's what they still want, you know, and that is all spawned from that pirate radio scene that was born in London, you know, in the late 80s going into the 90s. And yeah, I just want to show some love and respect for all of the pirates and all of the DJs and everyone that put their liberty and freedom and whatnot on the line. But yeah, just more importantly, I want to show respect to the scene as a whole, because we were very, very lucky, as I've said before, to have this. And I don't know if I took it for granted or not. I don't think I knew enough to not take it for granted. I just assumed it was what everyone did in this scene. And yeah, for me personally, it's been the hugest part of my journey. You know, it's got me to where I've got to. And pirate radio is the core and the seed and the heartbeat of everything that I've done since. So for me, it's always been a huge part of my life. But yeah, man, like, circumstances are mad, aren't they? Just where you're born and how you grow and who you're around can shape, well, it does shape and determine, you know, where you're going and who you become in life, I guess. But for me, pirate radio in London, it was everything. It really was everything. So yeah, to anyone that didn't have pirate radio, just literally switch it on and it was on. I'm sorry for you guys. I know in time you had one in the jungle and this, that and the other, and the sound spread on its own. It was such a strong sound. It spread itself. But, you know, turning on and listening to fucking Pulse FM, you know, or Cool FM or all the stations, you know, all them stations that have been and gone or that are still here. Yeah, just, I mean, we're fucking hell. I think I got lost in a thought then for a second. Friday night, you turn the radio on and Call would come on, and you had them till Monday morning when they switched off at 1 or 3 o'clock or whatever it would have been in them days. And you just had constant, good, high quality, not even just 2-bob pirate. The highest quality pirate that we've ever really known and seen would be Cool FM. And it was just at our fingertips as Londoners. And we were very lucky and blessed to have, you know, not just Cool, but all of them at our fingertips that we could record. We didn't have to wait for our mates to send us a tape. We recorded them and we listened to cutting edge music with the very best MCs through the week until it come back on again at the weekends. Everything was always fresh. That was why our music selection was always the best and the freshest. People that listen to pirates, now when you're in a rave on a Saturday night, you couldn't always take in what was being played or make a note or a mental note or whatever, because, you know, there's a lot going on around you. So ordinarily you'll come home and say, oh, there was that tune, I can't remember how it goes now. Pirate radio, you know, and I'll tell you, DJ Ash and Winston, Runtings and the Boogie Times lot, you know, they'll tell you this. I used to walk in that shop with a tape and it would have 20 you know, 20, 10-second or 20-second clips at the start of a tape, and I'd make them play it to see if they had any. And obviously I'm playing it the weekend after Brocky or Ron or whoever they got is on dub plate. Of course they didn't have it, but in time I would get all of them tunes, because I would add the ones I wanted to the end of the clip, and then in time I'd re-record another tape and I'd take off the ones that I've got, and that tape basically evolved over time. For a long time I would take it in the shop and play them what I needed and wanted, because I didn't know the names. But pirate radio, again, you know, it done that. It shaped my record collection and my life, and not just me, again, all of you guys. So yeah, bit of a different one today, I guess. But yeah, big up the pirates, man. Big up all of the pirates and everyone and anyone that was involved in pirate, even the listeners, you know, because without listeners, what is a pirate? It's just a geezer playing in his bedroom, isn't it, to no one. So yeah, as a team, we did a good job, I think, over the years. We definitely made our mark. We helped to push things and we helped to evolve things. And we created our own pirate radio scene that has its own stories, legacies and memories. So yeah, good times, man. Good times, both as a listener and as a DJ. So respect to all pirates here, especially all of the London pirates. So right, that's it for today's episode, guys. Thank you for listening, and thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. And I've already done 50 of these videos. They're about everything. If you look back through this playlist, they're not just about me harping on about pirate radio and how I love it. There's all different stuff, from raves that I went to scrapes that I've got into, to yeah, it's called Rave, Diaries and Tower Block Tales for a reason, isn't it? So yeah, we're up to episode 51. We've got loads more to come, but yeah, thank you for watching. Peace and love to you all. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you've got any of your own, you know, pirate tales, or you just want to show your love for what pirate radio gave to you, please add it in the comments. I read them all. I reply to every single comment on this channel. So yeah, I'd love to hear your stories and your views and vibes on pirate radio. All right, love. Peace, guys.